Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is always the CEO series where we bring forward to you the most phenomenal people, career successes, and what we try and impart on the audience is that we talk about the impact of their careers. How do they reach the areas that they are at this particular point? And our guest today is Patricia Correia, who's a very good friend. We're family from long years ago. Out of Dubai. She's executive director with extensive experience in people management and business leadership. At 27, she became the HR director for a French multinational. Since 2014, she has been directing business and teams in the training and sector. She's an expert in developing and implementing innovative learning and development programs across the globe. And with that, I want to welcome my dear friend, Patricia. Hey.
Hey everyone, how are you? Thanks so
I'm,
much for the introduction. Yeah, we
yeah.
are really like family, and I'm truly honored to be here with you today.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for making time on your schedule to be a part of this. We always like to start the show with you've reached this height. Walk us through from here to here. The navigations, the roadblocks, and U turns, whatever you call it. Give us kind of a quick synopsis of that.
Of course, yes, Ron. So my career began as a recruitment consultant, which is interesting because it's where I developed a passion for connecting the right people with the right opportunities. You
Okay.
know, at the age of 27, as you said, I became the HR director for a French multinational, Groupe Eiffage Énergie. It is an energy company where I had the responsibility of establishing HR processes for over 1,000 employees.
Mm.
At this time, we went through a merge, so I have to develop all the HR processes from scratch. So this is a pivotal moment for me because it allowed me to build a solid foundation in HR, So I learned so much from that experience. And as you know, since 2014, I make a change. I
Yeah.
make a move to the consultancy side, and I've been leading since then businesses and teams
Mm.
in the training and consultancy sectors.
Mm.
Over the years, obviously, I learned a great deal about how HR works and how to do things in a most effective way.
Yeah.
It's always a thing that concerned me, and AI now help us so much on
Yeah.
efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Well, luckily for me, it's a job that I really love. I love HR. It brings me so much satisfaction to watch, a new recruit became a leader, and it's what really drives me to what I'm doing right now.
Okay. Okay. Cool. At 27, you were put into that role. How did you leave on a Friday, come back on a Monday, and now you're at 27? I use 27 as kind of an anchor point because I think back when I was 27, I probably could not have been able to morph into that. So, what were some techniques you used to from being at such a young age to put everything together and give them a plan, the people plan to make it happen?
The major thing is that I'm always willing to take risks. That's
Okay.
what makes me really driven to these processes. I was never afraid of anything. That's who I am. I'm a risk taker. So I think one of the major secrets of my career is that I always believe that for me challenges are rewarding.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
feel rewarded in the end of the day, and that's the big secret.
Mm, mm. You mentioned challenges. Oh, some people look at challenges and they go into a shell. Oh my, what am I going to do? But to have that insight to say, okay, here's a challenge, one, two, three, here's what I'm going to do from that. Where did all that come from? I mean, they don't teach that in school. Trust me on that. In a school that you may go through some strategy courses or whatever, but where did that come from? Was that something inside of you, or based on mentors, or how did you make that happen?
So I'm lucky, of course, to have it's both. It's both. I have mentors who guided me through my career. I'm very lucky with my mentors, but and my family too. I have a twin sister, as you know,
Yes.
and we are always in a good competition with
Yeah.
each other,
Yeah.
and we push so much for each other
Yeah.
that we learned how to deal with challenges, And my mom, of course, she's and my father and my family,
Yeah.
they walk us through how to deal with challenges since we were young. And the fact that I am a marathon runner, because I am a marathon runner, and I always have a sports coach in my life, it's a big part of my life too. Because you have always, when you are running a marathon, you have always a choice to make, or to see it as a challenge, or to see it as a threat. And you have to see it as a challenge and with a smile in your face. And that's how you do it,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you mentioned your mom. I know your mom through Susanna and yourself. Very cool. So, hey, mom, how are you? I'm sure she's probably listening in and doing that. So, when you think about the 27 years old, and then you were able to put that together, so there was M&A activity, mergers and acquisition. That's a lot, even for a senior level HR person to understand. I see a lot of people reach out to me and they said, my company is going to merge. What should I do? What is the M&A plan for that? So what I'm trying to get at is that how do you learn that? Because that's a process, M&A, from an HR perspective, that you got to come in and give your plan to make that happen. Was it self-learning, or how did that come about?
Of course, so you have to, when you went through a merge, what you have to do is to make sure that you perfectly understand and align the business goals and the employees' goals. It's all about understand the businesses, and I think that's a major thing that human resources directors sometimes don't have. It's that they have to be aware of the business goals and of the industry trends. And I'm very curious, and curiosity is such an important thing in your career. You have to stay curious all the time. So I'm very aligned with industry trends. I listen and align both individual goals and business goals. And I communicate what are our main goals with the merge and make it clear for everyone. And that's what make it work. That's what truly make it work, with transparency, consistency, communication, and always have in mind the industry trends and the alignment between business goals and employees' goals. That's huge.
That's huge. And you just gave a master class on growth for a person to move to a different level. 3 themes you mentioned. You said always be curious as to why it's happening, and then you said listening. Do we listen, or do we listen for a pause to speak? I'm listening because I'm trying to gain information. And then you talk about your team, communicate to the board, or whatever it would be. Those are 3 key themes of successful leadership. Did you know that you were on a path to make all of this happen, or this kind of came up and you've learned from maybe mistakes or whatever it is? Because what you listed was the 3 major themes of leadership development.
It's something that when I started at Grupo FH, I have, a big thing to do, a big challenge to deal with, and I always learn, as I told you, for my family, that communication, transparency, and aligning objectives, it's very important for everything. So I try to apply it in my work. It's not something that I learned from my errors or from my mistakes. Of course, there are always bumps in the way, right? Who doesn't? But if you are transparent, if you work with consistency, and you are consistent with what you say, you will get what you need for sure, and you will get there.
Yeah. You make it sound so easy.
Of course.
Yeah, you make it sound so easy. But I mean, I understand the process because having been around a while, I understand that. When you look back to where you are today, and from the time you started from university, what was the biggest challenge that you look back on and you said, I knew I made the right decision to do this? I quit a job one time. I just was not happy. And it's called Sunday Night Angst. And I was sitting in my backyard on a Sunday afternoon. I said, you know what? I'm going to quit. Yes. And I went in and I wrote a letter to the CFO who I was reporting to. And I said, I'm out.
Yes.
No job. I said, I'm just going to quit. That was a pivotal moment for me. And I probably would not be traveling the world doing what I'm doing now. What was it for you? What was that pivotal moment? If you could think about one moment that said, you know what? I'm going to trust me and I'm going to try and do something.
Yeah, one of that moments, it's for sure when I left Grupo FH, when I quit from being a CHRO and I moved to the consultancy side.
Okay.
It's a very huge step because it's not something for example, my mom disagree with me. She don't want me to left my career and move to the consultancy side, but it's a very important step in my career, and I'm lucky to made it, because in consultancy, it's not only about your company. It's about working with lots of industries, different people, different cultures, running not only people, but running businesses. And it's much more rewarding. It's really a big step that I took in my career, and I don't regret it at all because I love what I do.
Mm-hmm. Your mom is an inspiration to me because Suzanne and I talk, and I see the vacation pictures. Your mom is there. I think that's so cool the way that you are, someone who gave to you and you're taking it forward and doing that. So I just want to mention that because I always tell Suzanne, I said, your mom is so cool. I love your mom.
Yeah. Yeah. She's amazing.
She is. So again, Mom, how are you? So how would you describe your leadership style? So you've managed teams from the age of 27, and you've been managing people for a long time. How did you learn that skill? Did that just come from how do you become a leader?
Okay, so my leadership style, I will talk about my leadership style. I don't know how I became a leader. I don't know. It's because I need to be a leader, maybe. I think I'm always, me and Susanna, we are always leading in school, We are always leading projects in school. We are always, But my leadership style, I would say, collaborative, that and supportive. Those are two big ones in my leadership style. I believe in empowering my team members. You've got to give them the autonomy to make decisions,
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you need to provide the guidance they need to succeed. And the other thing I've learned over the years is that to set up an environment where everyone feels valued and motivated, you've got to let them feel independent and responsible. Um, yeah, and adaptability is everything for me.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
also stress the importance of being open to change and continuous learning.
Mm.
Sure.
Mm. You mentioned some key words that continuous learning, open to different styles and listening. All those things you're talking about is all the research says these are the key points for the new leader. I say the new leader, the post-COVID leader, where you may have a team that's working from home versus working from internally, working inside of an organization. Um, and this style just kind of morphed into what you are today.
Yes. The core principles that guide my leadership, um, for me, the same ones I learned from my mother when I was a little girl. Some things never change, no matter how tech advances, no matter if you are on COVID era or not. Just classic, old-fashioned things like trust, communication, and continuous improvement. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, I think trust is the foundation of any successful team.
Yeah.
And I always, as I told you, I always do my best to build it through transparency and consistency.
Hmm.
Communication. Communication is the key to making sure that everyone is working toward the same goals.
Yeah.
And I also believe in building a culture of continuous improvement where team members are encouraged to learn, grow, and innovate constantly.
Hmm.
A
Hmm.
thing that I always do is time to time, we schedule meetings
Ah,
just to have innovative and creative moments. And this is huge and because it makes everyone of your team think on new ways to do things. And this
mhm,
is really important
mhm.
to stay
Yeah.
creative and stay relevant and to learn. It's very important.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussions or research on performance management. The old way of doing it was once a year. We sit down and you did this, all those things. Who remembers? People can't even remember what they had for lunch 2 days ago. And you talk about a project was back in January, and we're talking in November, December now. So when you think of that, and you mentioned about scheduling those meetings and building that rapport with a member of your team, that's the new way it's headed
It's
now, and managers should be developed. Go ahead.
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. We have to do regular check-ins. The old-fashioned way to give feedback, it's not the way we have to do it right now because
No.
things are changing so rapidly, that with my team, I have one-on-one meetings, uh, at least one per month, because you have to establish a mission and a vision and objectives to your team and to make sure that they are relevant and they are aware of the results that they have. You have to
Hmm.
make sure that you support them where they need. They have to feel supported by you. They
Yeah.
have to commit with you. And the
Mm.
only way to do it is to talk with them regularly. As I told you, communication, trust. And if you only did it once a year, you will lose it, right?
Yeah.
You lose it.
Yeah. Well, I always kind of thought of that because when I was managing a team of people in corporate, we'd always have conversations. We'd have coffee, and we just talk. Sometimes it doesn't have to be about work, but it's just having a conversation. What's on your mind? What do you need from me? All those kind of things. Because I always thought that once a year thing, because I had to go through one time, and they said, well, back in February you did. I said, yeah, but this is November now. I don't even remember what I did in February. So one of the techniques we developed was that to keep a success list. And if it ever came down to having those discussions, you have everything that's pretty much documented, and you can walk through that. But I find it amazing that you were able to kind of understand those techniques at such an early age, because when you mentioned in your bio at 27, I'm thinking, whoa, 27, I would not have a clue. I would trying to be figuring it out to whatever it is, and trying to do that. So mentorship plays a big role in what you're talking. How do you mentor your people? So you talked about those catch ups. I call them coffee chats or whatever it is. How do you manage that process?
Yeah, to mentor people, right?
Yes.
So I always try to, to motivate them to continuous learning,
Yeah.
and I learn with them. You have to very important things in mentorship is that you have to listen to them. You have to learn with them, and you have to stay aware of all the trends you are trying to teach them to, because we are lifelong learners, and as mentors you have to do it, and you have to establish empathy and make the time for people. Something which is really difficult when you are a leader is to make the time and have patience to be mentor.
Yeah.
And you have to create this time in your schedule. Otherwise, you will not be a good mentor, you know?
Yeah.
So people that you mentor have to feel supported, right? So you have to learn with them, you have to listen to them, you have to make time for them, and you have to be empathic with them. So, and you have to, another very important thing, and we already talked about that, is to have regular check-ins, so that they understand in what they fail and what they you have to recognize them too when they do things well. So you have to do regular check-ins and evaluate them too. It's very important when you are a mentor.
Yeah. In certain industries today, it's like, so when you look at the impact of AI and Chat GPT, I know of a lot of leaders that are really kind of confused in doing that. But my thought has always been, and you touched on this before, is that become a lifelong learner. I have to consistently keep, moving forward. My daughter mentioned to me when she was in college, and she was majoring in business. And she said, last finals are next week. When I finish this degree and I do what I've got to do and I get a job, I will never pick up a book again. And I've said, okay, so how do I kind of address this in real life? I said, that's just the beginning. Because if you want to become great at what you're doing, it's a lifelong learning exercise. You have to consistently read. So I take that back and think about AI and all the things that are coming about in Chat GPT. How do you learn from your side? How do you stay ahead of the curve in your industry?
Yeah. So I'm a lot. I'm always learning. That's a very important thing for me. That my mother, of course, always taught me to, and for that, I do. So I'm always doing online courses. I always trying to apply what I've learned into my career when it comes to AI. For example, many Portuguese HR managers who I'm talking with are not very keen to use ChatGPT, or because they are afraid of the change, or because they think, there are some ideas, not very good ideas about what ChatGPT, because people think that ChatGPT will cut your creativity, and I'm not that person. I'm a person who, okay, so if AI comes, I will embrace AI and I will try to be more efficient with AI. So I introduced ChatGPT in my life, and I could tell you, I'm a fan of ChatGPT. I'm a fan because you have to, when you use new technologies, you have to be creative. You have to have critical thinking, you know. So I always trying to learn with new technologies that came, and then to apply them in my daily work, you know, and in everything I do. And of course, I'm always aware of the trends of my industry. I like to follow thought leaders like you, Ron, for example.
Oh, come on.
Yes, that's very true. I like to share my experiences, for example, on LinkedIn, and that's one of the reasons because why I became a top leadership voice on LinkedIn, because I always like to share my thoughts and to exchange my ideas with thought leaders, and that's major. That's major. That's a lot of stuff that you could do to learn and to become a lifelong learner.
I'm going to do a shout out to Susanna because you just celebrated an anniversary at LinkedIn. Your sister. That's a learning for me. When I log in the morning, LinkedIn is probably, after I go through my company email, it's LinkedIn, and kind of flip through to see what people are talking about, see what someone has posted, connecting with people. So it's kind of like using that's the greatest tool that was ever invented for one of the greatest tools that has ever been invented is LinkedIn. But I notice lots of people, they don't really use it. You look at their profile and it's 5 years outdated, and there's all these kinds of things. But it's a tool that you can, as you said, it's continuous learning. You follow the so-called big people and you see what they're talking about, you see what they're posting, and there's so many people online that's doing cool things. Now there's so many people online that's doing a lot of BS, but again, this is a kind of tool that we're, as to what we're talking about today, because it gives you an opportunity to stay ahead of the trends, doing that. So I want to come back and ask a question beyond that. John Self is one of our listeners out of Texas in U.S. He said, "I'd be interested in learning your assessment on the impact of AI on jobs worldwide." Mark Cuban mentioned that 5 to 10 million jobs will be lost. Now, I'm going to put in my take on that. I know from human resources, I said, if you're in an administrative or process function, that's over with. You got about a 3 to 5 year window, and those skills, for the most part, is going to be automated through some kind of technological process. What is your thoughts on that?
I think that people will be, maybe if you have a monotonous work, and I'm not gonna lie here, maybe if you have a monotonous work, you will lose your work because AI will do it for you. But I think in the great majority of jobs, it will make you more efficient in your job. And I attend to conferences about AI with big thinkers in Portugal, but with people from all over the world that came from Portugal and talk about that. People from Microsoft, people from different sectors, and there's always mixed feelings here. On one hand, of course, we know that we will lose some jobs because it's natural. It's natural, it's like other processes. Some jobs are lost, of course, but you have the opportunity to become more efficient in a different position. So for me, AI, it's an opportunity because it will make us more efficient. Of course, we have to have critical thinking. Machines will never, I don't know if never it's a strong word, but machines don't have yet emotional intelligence.
Yes.
So critical thinking, it's very important, and it's it's all it's on us to decide what we want to do with AI,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
we will teach AI or not
Yeah.
to learn emotions, right? And to learn everything. Because so that's an interesting issue, and I think that it will make us for sure more
Mm-hmm.
efficient in the
Mm-hmm.
future. And I see
Yeah.
a positive side. In my perspective, I see a positive side of the AI, and not a negative one. I'm one of the defenders of AI, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I am too. You know what? As you were walking through that, I thought about. I still keep the old calculator when I need to. I don't know whether it comes up here, but I'll go here and do what I need to do real quick if I need a real number behind something. And then I remember reading an article on Chat GPT, AI, and all the kind of words that are being used in that era. And what they talked about was that when this first came out, the calculators, professors were trying to ban them in colleges because they did not want students. They wanted students to be able to add, subtract, whatever. And they were basically picketing the university on using this. I look at it the same way because if I've got to figure out something, I can do a quick Chat GPT, and it gives me kind of a framework to start from. Whereas if I was trying to research that, I'm Googling here, Googling here, Googling here, and that's going to take me a lot of time. But if I can get it one, two, three, I can start from there, and I'm way ahead of the curve. That's the way I see it.
Yes, that's the way I see it too, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
cool,
Gives
cool.
you gives you the basis to work on. So,
Mhm.
and of course, you have to make more questions if you want to have your answer,
Yeah,
but it gives you the basics.
yeah.
So it's amazing for me. It's yeah, I love ChatGPT. I love
Yeah,
ChatGPT,
I,
and I
I,
love all the AI tools because they make you so more efficient. You have more time to make what is important, which
yeah.
is being with people and nurturing your relationships.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, and the more monotonous tasks, ChatGPT could do it for you. So
Exactly,
absolutely.
exactly. And I hope the people that's listening into that, because there's a lot of question marks and in that whole space, and people are trying to decide. And I saw some companies they banned Chat GPT. I'm like, you will be out of business in 10 years if you continue that on that road and trying to do that, because everyone else is going to be responsive and is going to be able to make a decision, on doing that. So I wanted to ask you a question, which we always ask as we nearing the end. If you could look back on your career and think about the things that you've gone through, what would be a number one that I'm most proud of because they got me to where I am today? So we asked a kind of a variation of that earlier in the interview, but I want you to give some thought to that, to say, if I look back, this was a key point and this is why.
So if we are talking of a piece of advice that I would give to my younger self,
On
uh,
yourself. Yeah.
when I started my career, I would tell my younger self to embrace change and not
Mm.
be afraid to take risks, you know, because the most important growth in my career came from stepping outside of my comfort zone and tackling new challenges head on. And I would also emphasize the importance of building strong relationships and seeking out mentors early on. These connections have been, invaluable in providing guidance and support throughout my journey. As you run, for example, that's one of
Yeah.
the relationships that that I'm really proud of.
Yeah. That's a key word. You kind of get, as I said, you've given us a master class on certain key topics. But when you look at competencies of leaders to future state, and how do you build better leaders? One of the key competencies of that is relationship management. How do you manage relationships with people? I always tell people when I'm dealing with executives, I'll say, do a functional audit. How many functions do you have? How high do you know someone there that if you needed to get a half-hour meeting with say the CFO, would that be granted, or would they push you down to 3 levels below? Because as you try and aspire to this level, you need to have tentacles inside of those functions. You have any thoughts on that? You mentioned relationship management, and I always go back to think of that because I think that's extremely important today.
Uh, so, what are the most important skills, right, to nurture relationships?
Yeah. How do you do that? So it's not just transactional. Yeah, we're going to meet and we're going to cover 2 or 3 strategic points. Those kind of meetings. Synergies and all those buzzwords. How do you just build a relationship with people just to have a conversation over coffee or whatever it is?
Always listen to people, create empathy,
Mm.
trust, and consistency. Always. I think that's our key
Yeah.
for sure.
You keep bringing up all these words, and I'm like, oh my God, that's another conversation that goes a little deeper. That you mentioned empathy, and one of the key findings of the COVID to post COVID is a key competencies of leadership development is about empathy. It's
Yes.
no more than just saying 1, 2, 3, 4, but understanding that maybe this person's going through a lot. So give us kind of a highlight on your thoughts on empathy and why that's such an important piece of being a leader today, because that's come out in study after study after study. Empathy is one of the most important words, but it's not just a rubber stamp. Are you empathetic? Yeah, I'm empathetic. How can we be more empathetic? Can you give us some thoughts on that?
Of course, yes. You have to pay attention to your people, to listen, to really listen
Yeah.
to people with interest, because sometimes people are passing through a lot. And if you don't look at them, and if you don't make the time to listen them, you'll never create empathy.
Yeah.
So you have to be a thought leader. You have to create space and time on your schedule to listen to your people, to pay them attention, to make them feel heard.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And to ask them, do you need something from me? Can I help you with something? This is huge. And the great majority of leaders, believe it or not, they don't do it because we don't have time for that. We are always on a rush. We have
Yeah.
always to. So that's all about make time, pay attention,
Mm.
listen to your people,
Yeah.
give them advice, show them that you are there to support them when they need,
Yeah.
and be consistent with what you say. It's not only to say, okay, I will be here, but when it comes the time, you are not there for them. You have to be there for them. You have
Yeah.
to
So
show. Know,
I, I, I used to always hear leaders say, my door's always open. I say, yeah, but nobody comes in the door because they don't feel comfortable coming in there. So, Susanna and I connected. I made a sales call and I met her. An interesting story, and I always reference that about a leader that's being out of touch. And her eyes were just rolling over as I was sitting there and trying to understand that. And we always go back to that particular company that she worked for at that particular time. So a lot of this is just that rubber stamp. But you know what? It's not brain surgery. It just seems so simple that you have to think in terms of who you're going to put in charge of people,
of
as
course, yes.
opposed to saying, as someone I was following this thought line on, today. They said, "Well, I've been here 3 years. I didn't get promoted yet." I said, "What does tenure? When does tenure have anything to do with being promoted to manage people? Because that's a different skill." So I came up with this concept: Friday to Monday. Friday you leave. There's 10 people in the room. We're all equal. You come back on Monday, you're managing those people. The skills you had before, if it was accounting and now I'm accounting manager, it's totally different. And this is exactly what you were talking about. as it relates to just listening. How are you doing in this new role? What can I help you from your side to do those kind of things?
Yes, of course, yes, absolutely, absolutely. You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to make time for that. You have to make time for people.
Yeah, have to make
That's
time.
what really makes a difference between a
Yeah.
good leader. Establishing a mission, a vision, and objectives to all the people to make it clear at the beginning what you want from them. They are comfortable with it or not. And then make regular check-ins. Look at your people. See what they are doing, what they need from you. That's a real leader. That's
Yeah.
what leaders are for.
Yeah. Yeah. If I could take everything you said, package it into a textbook, and maybe we could do a course and go sell to schools to say, you're a senior and you want to be a leader in business. Here's what you got to do from here, and you move beyond that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool if we do that. So one of the key points of the show, because when we first started this show back during COVID, and we would send out and was all focused on human resources. We send out a QA, you'd fill it in, and then we publish it on the website. And then we decided to just talk to people and move beyond that. And one of the things I've always been intrigued by, how does someone start from here and you end up here? I grew up in a town in the south of the US. There were 3 traffic lights. And I lived between Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong. And how did that happen? And so I look to say, walk us through your career journey. And so in closing, I want to ask you, are there any key takeaways based on our conversation that you would want to give out to aspiring leaders? Because there's one school, I won't call a school, and there's a internship program for a law firm. And they told their people, listen to this show every Friday morning because it gives you a leadership masterclass, which is what you delivered. So any thoughts you want to give us before you leave on leadership, whatever it would be, leave with the audience?
Yes, of course, yes. Of course, yes. Take risks, never be afraid. Stay consistent with what you say, always. Stay consistent. Stay humble. Never forget to stay humble because it's very important. And always support others because giving back, it will pay off for sure. If you support others, they will support you too in your career. And it's not only about you, it's about entire communities, So that's my advice is if I could give them.
Okay, cool. So we got 5 key points that we're going to talk to schools about. So thank you so much for being a guest. And I knew it was going to be a great conversation. So I thank you for that, making time on your schedule. So as we begin to close out, I want you to hold on because I need to talk to you offline as we close out. So the people that are listening, please we're trying to grow our subscriber base. Share this with your friends if you can, and we'd appreciate it. So thank you so much, and I'll talk with you in just a bit.
Of course, yes. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.